back with Wetaskiwin with part 2 for Rod Mackenzie for Council's interview. We're going to talk a whole bunch of stuff about the city today. How are you, Rod?
I'm doing great.
You're wearing the same clothes. I've said this joke like so many times. Everybody, we recorded this a few weeks ago, but we're posting it tonight here. Great. Let's move right into the throw of things. Let's talk about taxes. Does Rod have a plan to keep taxes low, or raise taxes, or status quo? What's your view on taxes?
Well, if I get elected here tonight, then really, what it comes down to is accountable spending. No one wants to raise taxes, and I don't feel that we need to raise taxes. I feel that our taxes are high enough in this community, and that if it really comes down to it, is we do need to look at lowering our costs and lowering our taxes and lowering those types of fees that are become a burden on a community. So I would try to work at it and lower them through that accountable spending. That's really the only way that we can. It's legalized for municipalities that they have to run a balanced budget. So there's no really overspending. However, there is curtailing our spending to not be spending where we don't need to. I was just looking at some of the budgets here, kind of preparing for the forum and then also for this interview, and looking at kind of what we have as a community spent over the last few years. And something that kind of caught my eye that was a little bit kind of threw it off a little bit was our expenses have gone up through this COVID pandemic, where everything's shut down, but yet our utilities are going up in the different facilities that the city operates, and our wages have been going up in those facilities, and our contracted employees are going up in those facilities. So in a time when we are shut down, where there's no facilities to be actually go and use, but yet to have things increase in those areas, it's alarming to me, and wondering why. That's really what it comes down to. I don't know kind of what the decisions were at council at that time, but it is alarming to me that there are an increase when everything is shut down. This doesn't make sense. So basically, that's what I would curtail, is that accountable spending, and why increase in a situation like we're in.
Yeah, so
this doesn't make sense.
Kind of ties in with my second question about if you think tax money's been allocated appropriately, and I think that's what you just commented on by digging into and looking at the current spending and seeing. So, yeah. And again, it's tough to know how they spend without being in the throes of things. But
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know how they justify the spending that they did, and the decisions and how they came about making those decisions. But as a taxpayer that kind of just looks at the final numbers and to see those increase, it's alarming, and it makes me question: are they allocating things correctly? Are there things where that could have been done differently to free up some money, and maybe we didn't have to spend our entire budget this year, and we could have been in a situation where we didn't have to raise it, or we could have lowered it, and given a little bit of a tax break to the community in a time where people are losing their jobs because of a pandemic, and it's not a healthy environment if we keep raising taxes when nobody's making any money.
For sure. Let's talk a little bit about businesses, because businesses in Wetaskiwin provide quite a bit of tax base for the council, and bringing more business in or more economic development certainly would be beneficial. Do you have any kind of unique plans or any ways we can attract more economic development in Wetaskiwin?
Well, I think we need to. It all goes down to our tax base. Our tax base, because it is high, I don't believe it is drawing in a lot of businesses. There's a lot of different people that I've talked to over the last few weeks here since we've put my name in and started running here, that people are trying to create a new employment, a new job, or they're trying to start up a new business, and they're just getting a runaround from the city, and they talk about the red tape, that if we want to grow, well, then maybe we need to look at incentives for new startups and try to make it enticing that people want to actually build their business here in Wetaskiwin. It's been a long time since you've heard the jingle of cars cost cars cost less in Wetaskiwin. That's all that we really have been known for here in this community. And there's not a lot of new businesses, coming into town. So we really need to look at our tax base and look at getting rid of that tax base and lowering it so that it's enticing for businesses to come here and start up, and then make it so it's easier for them to get things started. There's a lot of great people in this community that have great ideas about what they want to do with their life, and they feel that city council is blocking them, or city management is blocking that vision that they have. And so we need to look with our city planners and look at why are there so many red tapes and so many hurdles that people need to go through in order to start up a little stand. I was talking to one family where they wanted to sell corn from Tabor, and the amount of paperwork that they had to fill out just to get a truck parked in some parking lot to sell corn out of, they decided, I'll just go down to Mashwas Cheese and I'll sell it there. And that's what they did. They went down and they paid their $20, got their side booth and sold and created their business there. But for some reason, the city didn't want them here in the city to do something that they were going to contribute. People were going to be there. And so that does not bring in new jobs and new industry into the town.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I think of when you say red tape, I was reading the paper this week, or I don't know, maybe the city's page, and they talked about pet licensing, and they said that if you get a new pet after a certain date, you have to do an annual license. And in my head, I was thinking, well, geez, that's a whole lot of paperwork for another department to do. So right. I agree with keeping it simple is a good philosophy that you have. So absolutely. Services in Wetaskiwin, are you willing to cut any to save any money? Services could be anything from hours of City Hall employees or landfill hours, recycling hours, that sort of thing. Is there any services that we have now that you think we're overspending on?
I see, and that's where I'm at a disadvantage, right? I don't know the ins and outs of exactly what's being spent on each set of services. I do know that we really don't want to cut the services that we have. We need to keep those there, but maybe it is something that looking at cutting the cost in any which way that we can. You can't get rid of it. You can't get rid of the landfill. Then things just start to go south, and we don't want to be in that community. I think we have a great community here where there is a lot of pride. It's clean, and we need to keep it that way. So really not cutting services, but looking at the spending of what's being allocated and where it's being allocated to.
Right. And being from other communities, do you think that Wetaskiwin is missing any services? Like, do you think we should be adding, is there a service in Wetaskiwin or not in Wetaskiwin that you think we should have?
Well, I mean, talking to a lot of the different families that I've been talking to here, a lot of them feel that there's no real family places to go. We have the Manlick, and that's basically it. So a lot of people with small children that don't really want to go swimming on a hot day in the summer, they've made comments about wanting to get a spray park, something that kind of they can go and do as a family where it's not going to cost them the money to go and actually do what's at the pool, but yet still be able to get out and about the community. So I think if there was a service that I would provide, it would be to increase activities and things to benefit the family and give them activities that they can do instead of just the one Manlick that we have.
For sure. Good. Let's talk a little bit about local businesses. Let's say you receive 2 quotes from this for a city project. One is from a local business and one's from out of town. The out of town one is quite a bit cheaper. The local one is higher. What's your preference for giving people the business even though you're spending more, or saving more money going out of town?
Yeah. I mean, it all comes down to is I want to build a community. I want to develop a community, and I want to develop the people that are within the community here. So I mean, and also you want to cut costs. I mean, there's two different things you got to look at. So, I mean, really when it comes down to it is that out of town contractor willing to only employ city workers, people from Wetaskiwin to work in that business? Or is it something that he's only going to be bringing in, or they're going to be bringing in anybody from around the community where it's not really going to benefit Wetaskiwin or anybody that lives in Wetaskiwin? Then I would definitely have to go with the person that's with Wetaskiwin and he's from here and he's going to be making his money here and he's going to be spending his money here. And that's really what we want to do. And that promotes the growth. But so it's kind of in the air there as far as kind of how to make a decision, but that would be my decision-making process and how I would vote on whether or not that person would be able to bring their business in would be the cost, but then also how is it going to benefit Wetaskiwin and who is it going to benefit? If it's not going to benefit anybody from Wetaskiwin, then we can probably spend a couple more dollars to benefit somebody from Wetaskiwin.
All right, great. All right, we're going to move right along to crime as well as homelessness. I've been not criticized, but I shouldn't have put crime with homelessness because it kind of makes it look like the homelessness people are committing the crimes, right. And that's unfair. But let's talk a little bit about crime. What crime do you think impacts Wetaskiwin the most, and do you have a plan to deal with that?
So we have, looking around, there's probably a lot of vandalism and there's a lot of theft. Those really are the two most types of crime that are out there. And so really, that's one thing that the city has gotten good here. They did get their contract and their grant to get 10 additional RCMP members just to increase the amount of presence that's here in the community and to kind of help with that crime and being more of in the face of it. Along with crime and along with theft, a lot of the times it's just out of a necessity. If there's no jobs, there's no work. People need to survive, and they turn to crime. But it's not an excuse. So if we were able to get our businesses attracted them here, and then there's going to be employment, there's going to be all that kind of stuff. So that would then prevent and help kind of curtail the amount of crime and the amount of people that are actually committing those crimes and getting rid of that petty theft and making it so that there's a lot more pride in the community and people want to take that pride. And I come from a community where you didn't lock your doors, your keys left in the truck, and you went on vacation and you came home and everything was still as it was, and the keys were still in the vehicle when you came back after a couple of weeks, and the fuel tanks in the beside the barn, they were still full of fuel, and you didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff. So times have really changed. There is a lot of the crime has increased, and I feel that there's no pride anymore. And no one respects anybody, and that's a sad thing.
For sure. Is there a solution though? Like what brings back pride?
Really, so pride is growing a community, getting the growth up, getting the businesses here, getting people working, and getting people to really look at Wetaskiwin and calling it their home, and just giving the police the support that they need to do their job, to be that face.
Sure.
So they don't have to arrest everybody. They don't have to be there.
Yeah.
I come from when I was on the highways, pulling trucks over. I didn't have to pull every truck over to get compliance. I didn't have to. I just had to be in the area, and that presence alone made everybody legal loads. Their logbooks were all up to date, and everybody was driving the way they were supposed to be, and the highways were safe.
Yeah.
I didn't have to pull them over. I didn't have to stop them, and I didn't have to charge them. So that's kind of how I would suggest that we can look at this. Police don't have to arrest people, but being in the presence, it makes people question it and consider not committing that crime at that time.
So you've talked a little bit about the RCMP here. What do you think of their current level? I know we're getting some more members, which should boost things up, but their current level of service, response time management, how do you feel the RCMP is doing in Wetaskiwin?
I think they're doing great. I think they're doing a great job as far as kind of what their capabilities are. I know it's been a struggle for all law enforcement here over the course of this last year and a half, for sure, with the amount of crime that's going up and a lot of people that are out of work and a lot of different coping mechanisms that people are turning to in order to deal with the uncertainties of tomorrow. That's very difficult for in a law enforcement community and a law enforcement group, that they have some tough choices that they have to make, and they have to do things at a split second. I have a lot of support for RCMP and police of all groups, whether or not the police, the sheriffs, RCMP. I have a lot of friends that are members, and I'm there to support them and help them and try to give them the tools that they need to be successful. So I think what they're doing now is great. The 10 additional will be even better. It'll just kind of give them some time to focus on what they need to do and to be that voice in the community to kind of help keep us all safe.
What's the best way, you think, to deal with loitering and the panhandling and then public intoxication in Wetaskiwin? Do you have any unique ideas to minimize that? We've had a long history.
There's a long history of it. There is a lot of. I mean, our community is not different than any other community that's out there. Every community deals with that type of a situation. When we look at just the homelessness side of things, it's sad to say, but sometimes you can only help those that want to be helped. No matter how much money you throw at it, if somebody doesn't want to be helped, they're not gonna take the help and try to improve their lives. And so that's it's a difficult thing, but you still need to be there for them and support them in any which way you can. And so I think kind of how things have been handled with the hub that we got put into downtown, it wasn't planned out properly. I think that was one thing that the city did get wrong, and how they've just made a free hotel. They created a bigger issue than they actually was to begin with, and it's never a good idea to have just that free reign. You got to have accountability.
So how would a shelter or homeless place look in your eyes? What do you think we would need to have in Wetaskiwin?
Well, I mean, you need to have a place that has accountability. And when I say accountability, it's not so much as like a goal. You need to have an end goal, because what's the matrix? How do you know if you're being successful? How do you know if what we are doing and the money that we have allocated to this facility to run, to keep people off the street, to keep them a shelter over their head and keep them safe, how do you know it's working? I think when we look at what we did here, it didn't work. There was no goal. There was no end game, and there was no matrix of what they used to measure that they were actually being successful in what they were trying to do. And I think they hindered a lot of individuals that may have been there for the right reason to try to get back on their feet. And I think they hindered them by not having a goal and not having a solution for how they wanted to actually see it through. So, I mean, that's what you got to start with. You got to start with that goal, that end goal. And is that successful rate? Is that to say that I've helped one family or one individual or 10 individuals get off the street and give them a place that they can get their feet back underneath of them, that they can then go and get a job, get ready for a job, get the training that they need to then go and get their own place and kind of get back to where they were probably before they came into the situation that they were in. Everybody's circumstances are different. Everybody has a different need. So they could have, the hub probably was the right move, but they didn't have a goal to benefit and to show that they were actually being progressive. And then when you had all the downtown community and all the businesses downtown, their safety then became a concern. There was no safety for them, especially towards the evening hours. So you had some people working those late shifts. Where's their security when they're leaving their businesses to go home? Because that's really what we want. We want everybody to be able to go home safely. So having more of a curfew on those shelters, having them more accountable to not just a free reign, I mean, I think I heard stories about how they were just transported down to the liquor store to get their drink and then come back to the hub, and that's not right. That doesn't help anybody. That doesn't benefit anybody, and it doesn't keep a safe and a vibrant community.
Do you think that Wetaskiwin, we've tried the shelter in various ways for the last 3 years, emergency shelter, and right from the get-go, every time it's kind of failed. And do you think that there's a chance for the public to recover confidence that something could be run responsibly and safely? Because I'll give you an example. When Rock Soup, all of the tents popped up, within 72 hours or 48 hours, there was 600 signatures from residents that said no. And now, granted, that was an illegal encampment, and that's maybe what they were saying no to. But when it was opening, originally planned on opening on the south side, as soon as they released the location, there was petitions and businesses and threats of litigation and all sorts of stuff. Like, do you think our community will allow a facility like that, based on the previous and the current mentality that we can't run it safely, so we shouldn't have it sort of mentality? I don't know if we can.
I think you can. But you got to present the goal. You got to present the end goal. You got to present what are you trying to accomplish. There are other neighboring communities that we have that have federal funding for different types of levels of people that are on the street. So do we build a partnership and using it more of a facility where maybe there's more of a rehab necessary for some individuals? Because I mean, with the fire department, we were there quite a bit, dealing with overdoses and different crimes of that sort that we would get called to assist with the ambulance and to help with those side of the community. So the people that are kind of in that higher category where they're more dependent on substance, maybe our system that we had wasn't the best fit for them because it just hindered them. It didn't help them in any which way. Then we can utilize that and maybe look at the federal funding that's out there in the different communities that have federal funding already to deal with those individuals and partner up and kind of give them a little bit more support there to help those individuals and get them into those individuals to those facilities where they actually can get the help that they need. And then leave the community center that we had to help those that are not really dependent on a substance, that they just need a place to stay. They need a place to get their feet out from underneath of them and to recover and to just give them a little bit of a fresh air of some support, that there are people there that do care about them. And I think that's the only way that you can recover. But I mean, if you came at it again and you didn't have a plan, the city won't go for it. They'll petition it every time. But I think if we had a plan, and then we could present that plan where it shows that there's accountability in those centers, that it shows that there's a game plan and an end goal, an exit strategy for individuals. There's been some suggestion that our community gardens that we have, I mean, if you need a place to stay, but we can get a garden going, and their responsibility is they need to now work in this garden. In my economics class, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Everybody has to pay for something by some way. And so it kind of helps put some pride back into them and helps. They're growing a carrot and now they can eat that carrot, and it shows them and teach them how to provide for themselves and to give them a little bit of I don't know what the word. It's okay. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't quite grab it here. But that's really the only way I think that a community can recover is to actually have a game plan.
Right. All right. We're going to move along unless you have another comment about any of those concerns. You're good to move on. Next question.
I'm good.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about our neighboring communities, Musquecheese, Millet, Ponoka, Camrose. Do you have any plans on strengthening the relationships between the neighboring communities?
I think we have from what I've been seeing and stuff. I mean, there is a strong community and a friendship, but I think we can grow a better friendship too with Maastricht and our neighbors to the south there. They've really, if you look back in history of Wetaskiwin, I believe they've kind of been a huge factor into building Wetaskiwin to what we are today. And so I think we need to still grow that and strengthen that relationship in that way. So I think basically what I would like to propose is that we generate a liaison type scenario where we have an individual in the community that's their main focus to help with it, to liaison between the city of Wetaskiwin and Maastricht to help grow and foster that relationship that's there, and just build on it a little bit further and a little bit more, and just help in any which way we can with any type of support in there. I think it would really grow and really benefit and help with kind of everything that's taken place over the course of the last 100 years. I think there's a lot of feelings that have been hurt, and I think that's really the only way is to kind of listen to their concerns and help in any way, and have an individual that can be that's their sole purpose, and to bring those concerns to city council, and that we can figure out a ways to come to the problem and fix the problems.
So I know that kind of probably ties in a bit with truth and reconciliation as well, but do you have anything to add regarding truth and reconciliation?
I mean, not really. I think that's really, if we build those relationships, then the truth and reconciliation is there, and it kind of comes out. There is a time for both sides that need to kind of realize kind of the where we're at in society and how things are, and to kind of move past that in any way which we can, and grow and strengthen the relationship that we have now, and not really dwell about what was in the past. I mean, I grew up in southern Alberta. My dad, he's taught school out on out at Kainai, at the high school out there in Kainai, and I mean, I have a lot of great friends and a lot of deep roots that kind of go back into the blood tribe there. And there are friendship. There's a lot of good people that have been hurt, and rightfully so. And I think with the environment that we're at, I think there's a lot other people that are also feeling the exact same thing, with kind of where we're at in this pandemic and how we can kind of grow through it and work together.
All right. Moving right along, we're going to move into current council's decisions. And what do you think council's getting right, or if you've dug into any of their decisions over the last little while?
Oh, that was a great question. I mean, you always got to find out what people are doing good. I put some notes here, just try to find them here.
Sure.
So, I mean, what they've kind of got right is... I mean, how they came about getting the RCMP, getting that grant and applying for that grant. I mean, they got that great. How they've grown the community in the way of beautifying it in the downtown. I mean, sure, it makes it look nice, and it makes it look enticing, and it makes it look there. So I think there's some pride that's there. I was looking through the stats of we have 71% of our community is a third generation here in the city. So when they're here, they stay here and they put their roots down and they grow. And I think that says a lot for past administrations, that people have appreciated what they have done, and how they've been able to grow their families and keep their roots here in Wetaskiwin.
What about the flip side? What decisions do you think they've really...
Well, I mean, really, I think they got the homeless thing wrong completely. And then just how they dealt with it after it went to the Rock Soup, and then where it is currently there behind Walmart. They just don't have a game plan. There is no... there's no solution. They just keep moving them and thinking that they have they're providing that they're supporting them, but there's nothing there. I think I heard there on the 27th. I think it was the 27th where they had their last council meeting there, and talking about all the red tape and how everything's getting fined to the Open Door Society. And they're just, when you look at them, they're just trying to help in any which way they can. And it's almost, the city is almost getting in the way to a degree, and not helping them. If there are bylaws, if there are laws that need to be addressed, then let's work with those type of people they're just trying to help, and make it easier for them to meet the laws and to deal with the laws and the bylaws that are there to help, and to get them that facilities that they're there to try to help these individuals. Right. Tent cities, they're never the solution.
Right. Anything else they're getting wrong, or you want to move on to the next one?
I think, really, that's been a hot point.
That's been a hot point.
That's
for
really,
sure.
I think really that trumps everything.
For sure.
That one there.
All right, we're going to move right along then. Well, that's the wrong slide. Here we go. What do you think? Now, I think we've touched on this a little bit, but I'll ask you the question anyways, because it's the last slide we got. What is Wetaskiwin's biggest issue or problem, and how would you solve it, Rod?
Oh, I think our biggest problem right now is just we are not growing. We are not having businesses grow in. You drive down Main Street and there's a lot of vacant buildings that are there of where businesses used to be. That is a huge problem with the community. There's just no growth. So how I would solve that is basically by reducing taxes, by giving incentives to businesses to move their businesses here, getting rid of the red tape that prevents or slows down a person from being able to have an idea, going to the bank, getting them funding for that idea, and then all of a sudden they get stopped at City Hall with not being able to meet the bylaws or different city planning development that may be there that hinders them, and they're not willing to really work. So that's my solution, is to work with City Hall, work with our city planners to make sure that, you know what, if people are coming in and they have an idea and it's going to show growth and it's growing in the community, maybe we got our bylaws wrong. We need to look at those and see where we can adjust that. And that's basically what my focus would be on.
Nice. And then your vision for Wetaskiwin. What do you see Wetaskiwin in end of 4-year term as you on council, Rod?
My goal. I feel that my goal would be basically that we would have a strong community, that there would be a lot of pride in the community, and that our youth of today have pride in the place where they live. I think if, as we spend money, if there's places that we can look at spending and increasing to help out, it would be for our youth. There's to give them a sense of pride and a sense of accomplishment and help in any which way we can, and is to give them facilities, counseling. If you spend money on the youth, they can take pride in the community, and you really don't have to work that hard on the other side of things to help, because then your crime rate would go down, everything would better in the community, and then we would have more and more. It's great that we have 70% of our community as a third generation, but it would be better if it was that was lower and we had more. Because starting here, I'm a first generation to Wetaskiwin, and so let's build on bringing more first generations here, and also then eventually we can build that, increase that side of things of the first generation, the second generation, and build the community and make it bigger and stronger, and where we can maybe create a new jingle other than just cars cost less. So let's grow it. Let's get some new industry here in town. Certainly sounds like a place I want to be, for sure, Rod. What about if you had unlimited resources? If we were just rolling in money and you could do anything you wanted, what type of a place? What would you do with it? What would you spend it on? I would spend it on the youth. That's where I would spend my money. Is in those youth programs, places for them to foster friendships and relationships, and put some pride and put some accountability into them, and giving them more opportunities to serve and to help out and to develop their own talents. There's a lot of smart kids that are here in the community. And if we could help in any which way foster their knowledge that they've been able to grow and that's there in their minds, and to help them with, maybe they need some counseling, maybe they need a mentor that can help them, that's in the field that they're looking at, that we could spend some money and to really develop this community to make it so that we can get some good entrepreneurs and some young entrepreneurs really building and building their pride here and making it so that this community can grow. So endless funds, that's what I would spend it on.
For sure.
The youth.
Wouldn't that be nice to have endless funds for our city?
100%.
A couple follow-up questions. COVID-19. I know that when Wetaskiwin, when COVID first happened, Wetaskiwin instituted a mask bylaw, which was over and above the provincial regulations. And then now currently we're kind of just following the provincial regulations. Being that Wetaskiwin has a lower vaccination rate provincially than the provincial average, should council implement further restrictions above and beyond what provincial government has instituted to keep our citizens safe?
No, I don't think they should. I think people need to realize what laws are there in play. This may lose my vote. Is basically my stance on COVID and how I feel about COVID. But I feel that how things are going right now, the businesses are taking the brunt of it. Where you have, I've seen businesses where they have present memos to stores basically stating that your indoor dining will be canceled in the mall, and only takeout services will be provided, and then that any business can still check if you want to for vaccination statuses. However, you do so without the support of the Alberta government. Tells you that what the government is doing right now isn't the solution. But then you also got to look at, as a community, we also have laws that we have to follow, and we can't mandate things that are outside of the realm of what we're allowed to mandate. So with what they did with the masking mandates before the provincial government introduced it, I think they overstepped their laws and their responsibilities as what they were actually allowed to do. There was a lot of fear that was put out at the very beginning. I know I sat with different members of family and we discussed then kind of what to do if you saw a dead body, and how to deal with that. Because at the very beginning of the pandemic there in early 2000s, it was people were going to be dropping in the streets, and you need to be prepared to deal with that. And so over the course of the year, we found that, that's not the case. And so basically, let's deal with what it is, and let's not have the fear that's there, and more restrictions aren't the solution. We need to look at what it is and deal with it. You look at all the different studies that are coming out of the US. They have treatments now that they're approving. The UK, they've established 5 different treatments that can be used to lower the death rates and to lower the hospital stays in their hospital system. Germany just announced here on the 30th that they have a new drug that they're looking at pushing through and getting, as it'll cut death and hospital stays by half. So treatments are there, and we need to really be looking at that side of things. But the fear of putting in more mandates, we're feeling. I think if you look at the people and you talk to the people, we're caged up, and it's not good to ever have a caged animal. It creates more of an issue, and if you're looking at you want to keep crime down, and that's not the solution, to put more restrictions and more mandates on. So, I mean, my view of COVID is a lot different than a lot of different people, but I think that there's a lot of laws that are being broken, all in the name of COVID, that really people need to be held accountable for breaking those laws and breaking our human rights. You can't do that. You can't violate people's human rights, because I mean, really, you got to go back to your question about reconciliation. That whole thing was violation of their human rights. violation of their laws, violation of their way of life. Here we are already again. We're committing the exact same heinous crime, but this time on the world. And so that's my stance on it, and that's it'll either make me votes or it'll break me votes when it comes to on the election day. But I think there are people that need to be held accountable for violating laws that are already established in the Canadian Constitution.
How do you feel about the current election we just had, the current outcome of it?
I was disappointed. I feel it was a waste of time. $6 million could have been easily spent someplace else. But I mean, to the Liberal government, money is no issue. For some reason, they just feel that they can just keep printing money and keep printing money and keep printing money. I've said it here in this interview. I can't remember if it was in part 1 or part 2, but I talked about how there's no such thing as a free lunch. And eventually somebody has to pay. Somebody's going to have to pay for everything and our extra billions of dollars that Liberal governments has put into our debt. Somebody's going to have to pay for it. Yeah, it does not just balance it out. No matter if you keep spending and keep spending and keep spending. I mean, as an individual, I'd love to be able to have that mindset that I don't ever have to pay my Visa bill. If I just keep spending and spending and spending, it'll eventually pay for itself and it'll go away. But that's in reality, that's never the case. Every business owner that's actually running a business, your bottom line is very important. And if you don't have the funds there, keep borrowing money, you're definitely not going to have the funds there tomorrow, but somebody eventually has to pay for it. And so I was very disappointed in the outcome. I'm nervous about the next provincial election, kind of how much the NDP were able to kind of win seats and not really seats, but the number of elections and votes that some of these left side of things got traction. I think our provincial government right now is driving us back into the left side, and that's never a good idea. I think had we not had a NDP government before we had for 4 years, and then Kenny started, and then we went right into a pandemic, I think we would be a lot better shape had we not spent so much money just giving things away. I was just disappointed.
Sure. So my last question, which I've asked everyone, and you've kind of already answered it, but if Rod Mackenzie's platform was a political party, what political party would it resemble the most? And I can clearly see it's not NDP, but
it's not NDP. It's Liberal. Not Liberal.
Yeah.
I mean, really. I mean, when I started looking at the federal parties and on that kind of thing, I mean, I've always been a conservative. I've always been on that conservative wavelength. But I just feel that, I mean, right now, had we had a Maverick party here in the city, I would have probably voted for Maverick, just kind of their mentality of how they wanted to put Alberta first, and to have the world stage, just like the Bloc they have their foothold in Quebec and how they always focus on Quebec first. I think we need to look at Alberta first and the West, and really there's so much that we have to offer the rest of the country, and I'm tired of Toronto dictating what we do out west. I think that's really what it comes down to. That's who I would vote for, and that's right. Kind of I would put, just like in here, I'd put Wetaskiwin first, just the same as I would want to have Alberta first, and that we can grow jobs here in Wetaskiwin and really make it so that we're growing a growing community.
Nice. Before we say goodbye to everybody in Wetaskiwin, and before you give us your final contact information, do you have any last words or anything else you'd like to talk about tonight with me, or any message you want to talk about? Totally up to you, but
I think, I mean, really, I mean, if it comes down to it, and I am fortunate to be able to win a seat here in council, just want to let everybody know that I do listen. I listen to everybody and take in it. And from the jobs that I've had, where I've had to get down to the root cause of things, in my current job dealing with health and safety, anytime there's an incident, having to get to the root cause, concerns and complaints within a community is no different. there is always a root cause as to what's driving them to have those concerns and to have those complaints. And I think that that's what I would listen to, and that's what I would ask the questions in the follow-up to try to get to that root cause and how they feel that root cause is, to get to a solution that would help them to recognize that it is a solution and that they can accept and get behind it and really grow it. But really, I would have to say that I am that voice. I would listen, and I will take that to council, and I would use that in my judgment and my voting way of, because it's not me. It's not my politics. It's not my policies, and it's not what I want to have benefit for Wetaskiwin. It's what do you want to have benefit. It's your community. I'm just sitting in a seat that would help get your voice across, and I would vote the way that you would want me to vote for. That would grow the community the way that you want it to be grown. I'm here. I'm not a politician by any means, but I do listen, and I do have a great love for people and a great pride in growing, and to try to make things better than what they are currently, and how we can to come together as a community and as neighboring communities to really grow and to make it so that if we're growing, then there's other communities around us that are growing. There's always going to be, you have Pigeon Lake not too far. There's a lot of things that get commuted between here and there. So we can grow it, and we can benefit our neighbors every direction from us.
Awesome.
They can benefit from us as well, as long as we can really come together as a community and grow and have that pride here in town. That's going to be, or in the city here, that it's really going to be beneficial to everybody.
Great. Well, tell everybody how they can contact you with more questions, Rod. I'm sure they'll maybe want to after this. If you have
more questions, give me a call. I believe my number is on the town council on the city website there. So feel free to give me a call, shoot me a text. It is probably the best thing to do right now. Just give me a text. If I don't get to you right away, I will respond.
Do you want to just say your number on the video, Rod?
Sure.
A lot of people are.
780-903-6859. Give me a call. Give me a text, and we can meet up. We can have a chat, and I can listen to what you really have, your concerns, and we can grow this community together.
Thank you so much tonight, Rod, for letting me talk to you. I learned a ton about you tonight, and I'm so glad I was able to interview you. So thank you. It was a pleasure. I'm grateful for the invite and grateful for the opportunity. Great. Goodbye, Wetaskiwin. Go vote Rod Mackenzie Council on October 20th. All right. Good night, Rod.
Have a good night.
Or Wetaskiwin, I should say. I'll say good night to you in a second.
Okay. Yeah.
That'll make the outtake real, I guess. I don't know.